If you want to keep the Missing Witches Project alive, join our coven. Buy our books, New Moon Magic, 13 Anti-Capitalist Tools of Resistance and Re-enchantment, and Missing Witches, Recovering True Histories of Feminist Magic. Or just spread love. Plant a seed. Be a witch.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch.
Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch. Be a witch.
You must be a witch.
Yeah, well, I live in downtown San Francisco, so I've had several sirens and things in the background too. It's always interesting.
I don't mind the background noise of my guest because that's just part of the immersive experience, but I don't need to hear somebody's toilet flushing. Or unless it's yours. And I'm going to leave that in, I think. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Missing Witches podcast. I'm Amy and I'm so honored, thrilled beyond belief to welcome into our circle today Sister Roma, the world's most photographed nun, also the world's most glamorous, beautiful, intelligent, world-changing, benevolent, and inspiring nun.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Really? Are you sure? I don't know about all that.
Sure. Maybe not of all time, but certainly in our current landscape. I will put all of my money that no one can find me a more inspiring nun in the world right now. Not since the death of Mother Teresa, who was hella problematic anyway.
Yeah, I heard she was a real bitch after all, right? I mean, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, now that she is gone, I can pretty confidently say I am the most photographed nun in the world. It's trademarked. And if you Google it, there I am. So it's if it's online, it's true, right?
Well, obviously. So who is Sister Roma today? Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you are today?
Well, I just came from the gym. I try to So today I'm sweaty and trying to add 10 minutes to my life by doing, 30 minutes of cardio. I am in a really good place, to be honest with you. I'm 60 years old and I feel fantastic. Like I have made some real important changes in my life. Like in the last 10 years, I got sober, which I think was a huge life-changing decision for me. It's really turned out to be one of the best things that I've ever decided to do. I try to take good care of myself. Like I try to eat well and exercise, and I have a lot of fun. I feel really, really, really lucky.
I have to ask, I think a lot of our listeners sort of struggle with their own sobriety or lack thereof. Do you have any advice for how you've made it?
Well, I always, I wish I had some kind of secret or magic phrase or potion that I could give everyone, but I've just learned that you really just have to be done, and everybody seems to have a different rock bottom, and I think that when you hit it, you'll know. And because a doctor can't tell you, look, you need to quit this because, your liver or blah, 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 or whatever. I mean, I did speed for 15 years. I loved crystal meth. I was really a big fan of that drug. And I started out doing just a little bump before going to the club, on Saturday nights. My friends and I could make a quarter of that stuff last for the whole weekend. And then you sort of start to do more, and then let's get an 8-ball, and then next thing you know, somebody's like, do you know you can smoke it? And I'm all like, what? And so someone showed me the first time I ever smoked meth was out of a light bulb. You break the end and then you put it in the light bulb and you light it, and you take a straw to the end. So for a minute, that was sort of my party trick. And then stores just started popping up plentiful in San Francisco, right in the Castro, where you could actually buy glass pipes, and crystal meth became a huge drug of choice in the community. And I'm very lucky that I made it out with my teeth and my sanity, and I never lost a job because of it. And I only did it because it was fun. I did it because I hung out with a group of people who did it. We had a great time with it. Sex was a big part of it. But when it started to take a really negative toll on my health, and I was like, oh shit, like this is not fun anymore. And I'm so fortunate that I was just able to put it down. That was like almost 20 years ago. Like I just said, you know what? I was almost 300 pounds. My skin was just broken out in psoriasis. It was horrible. I could barely walk up a hill. And I had to make that change. And I just stopped because I never did it because I felt like I needed it to be social or that I needed it for any other reason. And then when it stopped being fun, I was done. So I realized that there are a lot of people who have a much harder time stopping that drug, and there's CMA and other things that you can do to try and get the help that you need. I suggest that you talk to people about it and keep busy, find ways. Well, I decided that I could keep drinking. So I did drink like vodka sodas and continued to party in that way. And I just cut out the crystal. And then after a while, after I had enough drinks, I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm going to get some Coke. Wouldn't that be fun? So I was like, am I really better? I mean, like, it was just like swapped one for the other. And so finally, like 10 years ago, like I said, I just gave everything up.
I have given up hard drugs myself, and a friend of mine asked me about it, and I said the only thing I'm really addicted to is doing whatever the fuck I want. So when I didn't want to do it anymore, I didn't.
Yeah, I hear that. I love that. Right.
And I guess this leads into like this notion of perpetual indulgence, which you've kind of dialed back. But like, can you tell our listeners who are meeting you for the first time through this podcast, like what are the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence? And
oh my God, I don't know. Those freaks. I mean, they're just causing problems everywhere. No, I will say that honestly, one of the things about crystal meth and any kind of drug use or addiction is it's very easy to lose yourself in the addiction. And especially crystal can consume a person, and it becomes your best friend and your lover and the only thing that you think about all the time. I've been a sister for 36 years. So I was obviously using drugs and partying for the majority of those years. And I think that the sisters saved my life, because what the sisters do and what I always strive to do was to be of service to the community and to look outside myself and look outside and see others who need help. And you don't have to look very far to find somebody that you can volunteer for, that you can show up for. And that's what the sisters do. Honestly, we just sort of look around our community. We look around at other communities and see how we can be of service. We raise a load of money, like a shit ton of money, and we give it away. We have a grant cycle that's actually open now. If anybody's listening who could use like $1,000 to $2,000 for your little grassroots underfunded organization, you can go to thesisters.org and apply for a grant right now. We support LGBTQ arts and trans youth and women's health and HIV AIDS. Obviously, that's really where the sisters found their focus. Like the sisters started in San Francisco in 1979. And it was really just sort of a fuck you to the queer community. There was a group of guys who were very closely associated to the Radical Fairies. And not everybody, but a lot of the gay men in San Francisco were very like butch. There was a lot of leather jackets, a lot of flannel, a lot of handlebar mustaches. And one Easter weekend, this group of friends was like, you know what? This is boring. I have these old nuns' habits that I borrowed, quote unquote, from a convent in Iowa. That was Ken Bunch, Sister Vicious Power Hungry Bitch. And they put on their habits and just went out to fuck with people. Honestly, that's really what the sisters were. And Vish likes to say that everywhere they went, they created like psychological car crashes. Nobody had seen men dressed as nuns. It hit people on so many levels. There's like, women, it brought out all the misogyny and all kinds of crazy shit in people. And they sort of realized that they were onto something. So they called a few more friends in, and they came up with the name and the logo that we still use today. It's all the original stuff. And then around like 1982, HIV AIDS started to ravage the community. And that's when the sisters really found their purpose.
I have a quote from Sister Unity of Los Angeles.
Love her.
Yes, who said, "The one thing that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence have in common is that we feel what we call a calling. You see the sisters, you see the flamboyant color, but you also see the service and activism, and it inspires you to join in. It lights a candle in your heart." So can you tell us about that calling, about that time in your life when the sisterhood lit a candle in your heart?
I absolutely agree that it is a calling, and I believe that sisters are born, not made. I was Catholic college educated. I actually, can I tell you something wild? I was adopted and I was left to the care of a Catholic adoption agency. So in my earliest, like before I was like in my weeks and months old, I was cared for by nuns. And my mother and her husband, I can't call him my father, when wanted to adopt. And my mother says that our eyes locked when I was in the crib and she just knew. So that is where, like, I guess where my affinity for nuns comes from, maybe. But I went to a private Catholic college, and in 4 years, I honestly never did anything civic minded or spiritual. I didn't volunteer for one thing. Like in high school, I was active. I was class president. I was very active in different activities, but like I never did anything for other people. Like, to be honest, I was completely self-centered. I was an only child, probably insufferable to a lot of people. And I moved to San Francisco, and I was just like a gay kid in a gay candy store. Like I just lived this wild, hedonistic, like I had all the sex I could get. I boozed it up like I had a blast. And one day I was at the Midnight Sun on Castro Street, and it was happy hour. So we were all standing. This is like 1985. We were all standing around in our power ties, and it's a video bar, so there's these giant screens and you're watching. People are like looking up at the videos they're playing, Designing Women and music videos. And the bar door just flew open and this creature walked in. And for the first time that that I can remember that evening, everybody stopped talking and stopped looking at the video, and she just had the attention of the whole bar. And she looked like this crazy, like clown drag queen nun. And she walked up and she knew the bartender by name. He gave her a drink and she was smiling and laughing, and she just seemed to know everybody. And she walked up and she said, "Hi, Michael," which is my birth name that I never use. And I was like, "Do I know you?" And she said, "It's me, Norman." And I go, "What are you doing?" Because Norman and I had been friends. Like, she was a bartender in the Fillmore, and we were out of control together. Like, we would take, so she had all this booze at home all the time. So we would take all the booze from like under her sink and just pour it into a trash can and take it out to the gay softball games and get everybody hammered. And we called ourselves the cheerleaders from hell. And then we would go out at night and maybe do some coke and bring boys home. Like, we were really good friends, but she never told me that she was a sister. So when she walked into the bar that day, I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" She goes, "I'm Sister Luscious Lashes." And that was my introduction to the sisters. And so I was intrigued, and she introduced me to a couple more. And then I started to volunteer with them as just in my boy drag, selling pom-poms, like at a basketball game, whatever needed to be done, basically. And one day we were going out to cheer for the Eagle softball team. And she just sort of innocently said, "Why don't you just try the makeup?" And I was like, I've never, ever in my life thought about doing drag. Like, it just was not me. I didn't think. And I was like, "I don't have anything to wear. I don't know how to do it, blah, blah." So she showed me how to put on like the white face. And then she put me in front of the mirror and she said, "Just paint whatever comes out." And it was my very first face, and my face for a few years was very graphic. I'm a graphic artist by trade, so it was very angular, very sharp triangles, big, bold, like hard blush, and like it looked like war paint, which was very fitting actually for the 80s, because we were at war. We were all fighting for our fucking lives. We were fighting for medication and for education and for fairness and for our community's health, really. So that is when I realized, oh my God, like then I learned about the history of the sisters, and I met the other sisters, and I had never met such an eclectic, crazy, passionate, smart, brave group of people. And I was like, my head exploded. And I was like, oh my God, I care about I care about people. I care about my community. I want to get involved. I care about my civil rights. I care about all of these things that I didn't know. It's like, I'm so emotional right now talking about it. It changed my life, Roma was born in that moment. And that's sort of what I've strived to do. I've strived to make the sisters that came before me proud and to be a good representative of the sisters worldwide and make the world a better place if I can, whatever I can do. I feel like I'm talking a lot. Am I
No,
talking too much?
I want you to talk and talk and talk, and I want you to ignore my questions and say whatever comes up for you. I want you to talk and talk and talk. Ideally, I would just sit here for the next half hour and listen.
Well, that would be boring. It's like, it's not my fucking TED talk. Ask me something. Ask me something else.
Well, if you were going to do a TED talk, then what would it be about? What would be the name of your TED talk?
So my best friend, who's been my friend for like 30 years, Michael Ewens, aka Shante Bouvier, has been on me to write a book for like probably 20 years. A lot of people come up to me, go, you should write a book. And I'm like, don't people say that to a lot of people? Like people, like, girl, you should write a book, all these things that happen to you. And I'm kind of like, should I? Like, does it have, where's the beginning? What's the end? All these things start to flood my mind. And I'm like, I just can't. So, but I do have a name. And if I did write a book, it would be called Party of None. Is that cute? Is that good? I mean, I like good. That. Yeah. So, maybe that would be my TED talk. I don't know.
It's so funny because I actually have, like, in my list of questions, if you have ever thought about writing a book. I mean, I've been doing research on the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence for the podcast and for this interview. And I kept thinking, like, I wish that Roma had written a book that could just be, like your own personal history, but also the history of the sisters. There's some stuff out there, academic focus, that kind of thing. And yeah. Millions of articles and interviews, but I would buy it. I mean, you're guaranteed at least one royalty check if you do decide to do this.
Well, that's the thing that I'm sort of trying to, I'm like, don't aim for the New York best sell. Like, calm down, bitch. If you wrote a book, it would be very personal. It wouldn't have a mass appeal. It doesn't even have to be that good. But then but then the other side of me that's very, like, I always want to be the best at everything if I can. So that's kind of where the conflict is. But I think I have to sort of write it from the heart, which is how I tend to do everything. That's how I try to approach everything, because I just think you have to be genuine and you have to be honest. And people seem to relate to that, because people can smell phony bullshit a mile away. I know I can. But so yeah, maybe I will. I have this like imagination, like, well, when I'm can't move, or I'm incapacitated or frail and old, I'll sit down and finally write it all down. But then you can't really, what would I do with the money if it makes money? I want to be able to still have fun. I don't know. Can we change the subject?
Yes. If the book made money, you would give it away. I think we both know the answer.
Oh yeah, definitely some of it. Oh my God, wouldn't it be so fun to have a ton of money? Can you imagine like being a billionaire? I'd just be walking down the street going, hey, yeah. I hear you got a lot of kids here. I've honestly done that before.
Yeah.
I was in the grocery store and my mother had sent me, this is like years ago. And my mother had sent me money for Christmas, and I had a few crispy $100 bills in my pocket. And I saw this woman in line next to me, and she had 3 boys, and she just looked hassled and harried. And it was the holidays, and she was trying to load the things out of the cart, and the kids are running around screaming. And I was like, I'm going to give this woman $100. I just had to, And I walked up to her and I'm like, I hope you don't mind, but I would just love to give you this for the holidays. And I handed her $100. Oh, no. She goes, I don't need it. We don't need it. And I was like, please just take it. And then I walked away and I was like, she probably has a lot more money than I do, but I just had to do it. Like, it really wasn't even about the money. I don't know. I really love seeing parents, like I live in the Tenderloin, and there's people are talking about the Tenderloin a lot lately, and there's this whole talk about how it's a doom loop and it's so dangerous. And I've walked through the Tenderloin in drag, out of drag a million times, and honestly, I've never felt in danger here. But there's a lot of unsavory behavior going on there. It's true. There are people who are in fentanyl, like comas. There's open air drug markets, and it's shocking to see. And the reason that it bothers, one of the reasons it bothers me the most is because there are families down here. And so when I would see parents walking their kids to school through the Tenderloin, those are like my heroes. I'm like, these people are really doing the Lord's work. Like, this is really great stuff, if there is such a thing as the Lord. But anyway, you know what I mean?
Whether or not there is a Lord, there is definitely the Lord's work. I use that phrase all the time when I really feel like I'm doing the right thing. I was raised in the church too, so I still have the terminologies, and they're just the ones that kind of come out of my mouth. But I think there's no question in the world that you are doing the Lord's work. No question in my mind at all.
I mean, if you take okay. Yeah. No, I think I'm doing good work. I do feel that. I honestly feel that. I'm very proud of it. It brings me great joy. Honestly, I think it's one of the secrets to happiness is to be of service to other people. Because every little bit that you give out, I spend like 3 hours getting ready. I know it's ridiculous, but God, I look good when I'm done. And I feed off the energy that gets from, the feedback that you get from people, the joy that people express. And every little bit that you give out, any kind of volunteer service that you do, it comes back to you like 1,000 times. So when I'm out and people, throw compliments around or offer, scream hello or whatever, and I that's what I'm there for. It makes me feel so wonderful to see them be happy. And then when they come up and ask for a photo or a selfie, I literally will never say no. So that's where my tagline, like the most photographed nun in the world, comes with. Can I tell you like the true backstory of that?
Please do.
I was an MC at the Folsom Street Fair for 15 years with Heklina. She and I were the two grandmasters of the Folsom Street Fair main stage. Yes, she would always bring her T-Shack show, and we had a fabulous time doing that together. And one year it was like unseasonably hot, like 89, 90, in the 90s. And we had been working all day, and I was finally done. I was off stage and I had on some heels, and I wanted trying to walk to my friend Jay's house in the Mission, and my feet were killing me. And it was just, I was over it, and people were coming up asking for photos. And I would stop. And as usual, my friends that I was walking with were like a mile ahead of me because they're like over. They're like, fuck you, girl. We're not going to wait while you do this. But I got to my friend Jay's house and I threw myself in a chair and I went, ugh, oh my God, if one more person asked me for a fucking photo, I'm so over it. And he just looked at me and he goes, well, you better enjoy it because one day no one will. Ooh. And I just went, oh, literally my face cracked. And I realized what an ungrateful, awful, I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And I vowed, honestly, from that day forward that I would never say no to a photo. Bless and I you. Don't. Like, why would you, right?
Yeah. Back to volunteering, there's this capitalist myth that no one will work if not for money. So you've already kind of answered this, but I want you to expand more, like under the weight of individualism that I feel is like growing like a shadow. How does volunteering benefit not just your community, but like you? Can you tell our listeners like how volunteering makes your life better, not just the lives of the people in your community?
Yeah, well, if how about you can go on Facebook and be like, I volunteered all day serving meals to so people can know how great you are. But that would be a person who is in it for the wrong reasons, probably. but I do share when I do volunteer work because I want people to know that this opportunity is there. And the thing that honestly, the thing that I've learned, because I have honestly volunteered during the holidays, there's a group called Tenderloin Tessie's Holiday Dinners. And every Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, they open the First Unitarian Church and they invite people who live unhoused from the community in different situations, different levels of addiction and struggles to come in and have a holiday meal. Obviously, I don't do it at Easter. That's a big day for the sisters. We can talk more about that later. But thanks for Thanksgiving and Christmas. Honestly, that is like basically my holiday. I love that event. I stand there in drag. We welcome everybody in. We seat them at tables of 8, so it's family style. There's entertainment going on, and they are served like they're a guest at a restaurant. Like we bring them food, and then on the way out, they can stop and they get care packages. And then now we've recently, in the last few years, added huge tables of donated clothing that they can pass through on the way out. And honestly, some of those people, obviously the volunteers, many of the volunteers that from the community and outside the community who work there have become like family friends, that I see every year, but also the guests, like these people, and then I'll see them outside of the event, and now we have a connection. And just to make someone know that they're seen, and that they're cared for is so it's so important. And it really is, it just fills you with joy when you see them light up and when you see them recognize the fact that they know someone cares. Because in their day-to-day, like, people don't see them, like, people, and when you hear somebody outside screaming on the street, it's very tempting to be like, oh God, okay, we got another one, crazy. But they're in pain and they're struggling. And one of the greatest joys is to reach out and make a connection with another living human being. And that can take a lot of different forms. There's so many ways to volunteer. There's so many different great organizations.
I saw one video, I believe it was the San Francisco sisters, who were just out in the street, hugging people that others might not want to hug. Let's just say the unhoused, and it was so fucking beautiful just to see this like drag nun being more of a nun than the nuns that we're used to, and going and doing, like, to use another religious term, the laying of hands. Like, I really feel like these hugs that I was watching on YouTube were like healing.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the main reasons that I knew I had to join the sisters is because before it was even called HIV/AIDS, people didn't know what was killing the community. And it would pop up in this horrible manifestation where your healthy, beautiful friend would be thriving one day, and the next week they'd be emaciated. They'd be covered in purple, cancerous, the huge lesions. And people were freaked out because there was so much shame and stigma around it. They didn't know what it was, what caused it, how contagious it was. So these people lost their jobs. They quite often lost their homes. Their friends were afraid to hang out with them or even touch them. And the sisters would walk into like a gay bar in the Castro, and way in the back darkest corner, you might find someone sitting there, clearly, obviously stricken with HIV and AIDS. And sisters would sit down and engage them in conversation. And quite often at the end of that talk, the person would just be like, "Can I have a hug?" And the sisters always said yes. And that's when I knew that I was with the right group.
Yeah. And 36 years, you said you've been a sister.
Yeah.
So how obviously our perception of HIV and AIDS has changed. PrEP is a thing, which it wasn't 36 years ago. But how have you personally witnessed the political landscape? I mean, a lot of our listeners weren't even born 36 years ago. They have no frame of reference for what it was like to be queer or to exist in the world at all. So how do you perceive the world having changed, or the pendulum having swung back and
Well,
forth.
I love that you bring the pendulum, because the pendulum swings both ways and it's swinging back right now. But it was scary as fuck. I mean, like literally, like young people were just dying and nobody knew why. And it felt like nobody cared and nobody was doing anything. Like we're like, there was a real sort of a feeling that it was killing all the right people. It was killing prostitutes, intravenous drug users, and faggots. Like, who cares? And that was real. So we had to take drastic measures. The sisters were one of the first groups ever to produce a safer sex pamphlet called Playfair. Really, honestly, the first in the world to use like plain language and humor. It is an illustrated pamphlet with nuns talking about how to avoid sexually transmitted diseases, and we still publish it today. But it was terrifying, and it felt, because I moved to San Francisco from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a lovely place to be from, and it's a bigger, more, I think, inclusive city then. But at the time, it was like, you can't be gay here. Like, really? Like, are you kidding me, Queen? And I could not be gay, you know? So I did some student teaching. I was like, God, I'd love to be a teacher, but I'm like, I can't be a teacher here. So that's one of the reasons that I moved to San Francisco, so I could be my authentic self. But, you know, my lovely friends in Grand Rapids were like, oh, you're moving to San Francisco, you're going to get AIDS. And it turned out that I couldn't have moved to a better place, because this was the epicenter of educating the community and fighting back. And I met the group that were on the front lines in the war against HIV/AIDS, and I joined that group. So it absolutely was the best place that I could have moved. I'm so fortunate that was the path that came to me and I followed. So it was very, very scary. And then we have fought hard for the progress we've made. And thankfully, the disease is no longer a death sentence. People live a very long, full, beautiful life with HIV/AIDS. And now, like you said, we have PrEP, so that if you don't have HIV, you can take this pill. And I'm not saying, you're cured, girl, go out and, do whatever you want, because there are still other sexually transmitted diseases, which are not fun, which you can get. PrEP is only good for one thing. But the sisters, in addition to the Playfair, were very big with the condom ministry. We had to convince our community that safer sex was hot and it was the way to go. So oh my God, I have no idea how many condoms we gave out, like crazy. But none of that happens anymore, really. I mean, we still do some condom ministry. We still talk about safer sex practices, but it's definitely different.
On the subject of safer sex, I'm so glad that we've come around to this, because we had a very lively conversation in one of our coven meetings recently about ethical pornography. And until today, I have never had the opportunity to speak to a pornographer/nun. So I want to know about how those two roles like intersect and impact each other. I haven't watched any of your work. I'm sorry. I'll get to it.
But girl, I'll hook you up. I'll give you a little membership. You can check it out.
But like, is safer sex like a theme in what you produce?
So I mentioned my best friend, Michael Ewens, for 30 years. We've been friends. Well, the way that Shantae came to San Francisco was they managed a gay bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they booked actually Shishi LaRue. Shantae booked Shishi LaRue on her first ever out of town gig. Like, Shishi was huge in LA, but Shantae booked her to come to Phoenix, I think, to perform. And they became fast friends. So Shishi recommended Shantae to work for Falcon Studios, which is the world's #1 leading, most prolific, porn studio ever, gay porn. And they moved her out to San Francisco, and I was a host in the VIP room at Colossus, this big nightclub south of Market. And I was just walking through the VIP, and there was this drag queen standing against the wall in like this. She was wearing these big gold cuffs and this red, white, and blue like top. And I just walked by and I go, "Get it, Wonder Woman." And the next thing you know, we found ourselves at the End Up in the morning. And the next day, I think I brought burgers over to her place, and we just have been like best friends ever since. And it was that chance encounter. But she's the one who introduced me to the adult industry. I used to own a magazine called Hype, and we needed images for the cover, because we learned really quickly that nobody in the gay community picks up a magazine unless there's a hot dude on the cover. So I went to Steven Scarborough, who I'd met through Shishi and Shantae, who was the owner and director at Hot House Entertainment, to beg for images. He was more than happy to let us have whatever we wanted. And then I started doing some freelance graphic work for Steven at Hot House. And he eventually hired me to work in the art department, and I worked my way up to art director there. And then Hot House got bought by Falcon Naked Sword, and now we are like the world's largest conglomerate gay porn studios and brands. I'm the creative director now. So I've worked in the adult industry for over 25 years. And so when I started in porn, all of the studios that I was associated with were condom only. Like the people that worked in the gay porn industry, especially Shishi LaRue, Steven Scarborough, were very conscious of the fact that we needed to show the community how to protect themselves and that it was still hot. Like, you can put on a condom and you can still fuck like crazy. It can still be messy. It can be sloppy. It can be fun. It can be raunchy. It can be whatever you want it to be. You just use a condom. And so for every studio that I worked for was condoms until just like a few years ago, we finally decided that we were at a place where it was safe to stop using condoms. And we got our toe wet. We did like one condom feature with no condom. Cause like, honestly,
was it your toe that you got wet though? Come on now.
Just the tip. We just put the tip in. And people really, some of the hottest studios during that time, there were studios that did not use condoms. They were very controversial. They were facing all sorts of backlash. The performers were often criticized, but meanwhile, people were watching the fuck out of that content. Like, people loved it. So we knew that people would prefer to not see condoms, and it's proven to be true. Like, our movies now do not have condoms, and business is booming. Business was especially booming during COVID. Girl, everybody was home and horny, and it was like, oh my God. So, but yeah, I think that it can be very ethical. We're very conscious of being inclusive and the diversity. We're careful to make sure that our cast represents our audience. We want people to see themselves in our movies. We want to make sure that people of color are front and center. We have beautiful exclusive models from every race. We've cast trans performers. Like, it's been a really great way to be a nun and to be involved in porn, because the two worlds actually meld really well. The fact that I worked for these condom-only studios was great for the sisters' message about safer sex and the way to remain healthy, but without shame and without guilt. And then it was also a great way to get money for the sisters and to get donations and prizes and hot models to come to our events. And it's been a very lovely marriage. It really has. It's been great. And then I got to do all these fabulous events in the adult industry. Like, I've traveled all over the world, basically, hosting queer events. I'm the host of the Grabbies in Europe, in Torremolino, Spain. Just these incredible opportunities that have come up, and I'm just like, really? And then when they see Sister Roma up there, I of course have to talk about the sisters and talk about, I'm a political person by nature, so I talk about the importance of, because people can get comfortable. I think that people have gotten comfortable. People who were, like you said, weren't born back when I was doing all that fighting for our rights. People can get married now. You can serve in the military. Like, all those battles have been fought and won. But the important thing to know is that they can all be taken away with a strike of a pen. And if you don't believe that you can wake up tomorrow with less rights than you've had today, ask a woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Ask Roe v. Wade.
Yeah. So that's the new mission, is to get the newer generation, the younger queers out there, like, motivated, and to make them realize that it's, yes, it's great to be gay, but it's also, there's so much, as we've seen with the legislation, the 500 bills, the anti-LGBTQ, anti-drag legislation, and then the way that they're attacking the trans community is absolutely horrific. It's that they're taking the page right out of, like, Nazi Germany. it's an attempt to eradicate and just eliminate and exterminate. Really, it is. You can't say anything about it, you can't talk about it, you can't hang flags, you can't have drag queens, and it's all for the children. It's all to protect the children, which is such bullshit.
It's such bullshit. It
Yeah.
is such bullshit. These are the same people who are kicking their 14-year-old kids out onto the street. Like, how is that protecting children?
Right. And taking them to gun shows.
and taking them
And
to gun shows.
MAGA rallies and big truck rallies, and like, you think you're not grooming your kid? I don't. You're welcome to raise your kid any way that you see fit. That's your right as a parent. But if you are a parent who decides that you want your child to know that there are people in the world who are queer and trans, and you want your child to grow up in a world being coming from a place of love and acceptance and tolerance, maybe you want to bring your kid to a drag queen story hour to hear these great stories about these two same-sex penguins who were partners for life. Like, is that, this is the hill you're going to die on right now while your kid's being shot up in school? Like, get fucking serious.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to talk about the Dodgers palava if you don't really want to. I'm sure you've talked enough about it this year, but it's so interesting to me that it seems to me that the mission of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence should be the least controversial thing in the world. It's like, spread love, help people. I don't even know what my question is, because it's so baffling to me.
Well, because you're confused by what people choose to be offended by.
Yeah.
And now we live in this weird, like, fake world where people get offended by everything, and they just think it's their right to come out and point fingers and protest and scream about how their rights are being taken away and being abused, and their freedom of religion is being assaulted. And it's like, I don't give a fuck what religion you are. I would never storm your church and tell you that you can't believe or worship. However, to be honest, I think that it's very important to find something to believe in and that brings you hope and comfort. And if it's being an evangelical Christian, honey, have it. Like, have a field day, lay the hands, the snakes, whatever it is you fucking do it. But, don't turn around and tell me what I can and can't do, and then take it to the ballot and then vote away my civil rights, because my existence is not a threat to your right to believe whatever you want to believe to your religion. The sisters are not mocking nuns. We are nuns. We're not mocking religion. We're mocking organized religion, the way, and we're actually, if you are somebody who decides to weaponize your religion and take the word, the gospel, and use it as a way to oppress someone else, to take away someone's rights to exercise your misogyny, your racism, your homophobia, your transphobia, I'm making fun of you, girl. To be honest, I'm making fun of you. I'm not making fun of your God, your religion, your nuns. I'm making fun of you.
And you grew up under Catholicism, so you know what you're talking about. And I have to read this quote and have you respond to this. You said this, so it shouldn't be too shocking to hear.
God,
let's face it. Religion is campy. It's pomp, it's circumstance, it's burning purses that smell like incense, it's candles and stained glass windows and robes and brocade. Is there anything gayer than religion?
True, though, right? I mean, find the lie. Hello.
I think, and that to me is what is so beautiful and exciting, and very much related to the label that I've chosen for myself, being witch, it's this intersection of reverence and irreverence, because being a sister is it's no fucking joke. Like, you've got to go through many steps. I could list them all, but I'll save that for another time. Many steps to actually be like an official sister. It's very serious, and you have to do fundraising and you have to do volunteering. But you also live on the other side of the coin of reverence and irreverence, where like everything is available for delight, I guess. Maybe can you talk about the intersection of reverence and irreverence and how that plays a role in your life or in your sisterhood?
Yeah, you're so right on. Some sisters, it can take anywhere from like 8 months to 2 years or longer to fulfill the requirements, the process that we ask of people who aspire to be sisters. And there are certain things you have to spend time in our archives. You have to have a novice project, which is usually a fundraiser, not necessarily, but we're a group of very eclectic group, as you can imagine, gay, straight, every color, every race, every belief. So while on one hand we're very eclectic and we are sort of rule breakers and rebels, we do also kind of have to have rules, and we do take vows to never take ourselves so seriously that we forget to have fun. But we do have a very serious mission. Like, we do some very important, serious work. So I've always kind of thought of it as being like a double-edged sword sometimes, because back to the Dodgers, like, I understood the reason that the brass at Dodgers like freaked out and withdrew the invitation to the sisters. I honestly did, because when I worked with San Francisco Giants on Pride celebrations, so I know you work with, like, there's a group who's made up of queer people, right? Sometimes a couple of queer people. There's queer, we're everywhere. And they're like, oh, we're going to plan the Pride night for the Dodgers. And they're like, well, let's honor these people. Oh, we have to honor those sisters. They've been in Los Angeles for 27 years. They do the great work. And they sort of wrote it somewhere in an email, and somebody went, approved. And then fucking Marco Rubio sends a letter, and all of these crazy Christians who decide to be offended by the sisters, like, just lose their minds. And the people at the top levels of the Dodgers freaked out. And they're like, oh my God, what did we do? We made a mistake. We have to disinvite these people. And then our community came back, and our supporters and people outside of our community, including religious people, and just all sorts of amazing support for the sisters came back. And all of the other organizations that were part of Pride with the Dodgers pulled out. They're like, you can't be selective. You can't have performative Pride. If it's all or none. The LGBT Center pulled out everybody. So they had no Pride night. So they kind of were forced to invite the sisters back. And that was lovely. And I believe that they really do believe that they made a mistake. I think they learned more about the sisters. But it's that double-edged sword where just to look at us walking down the street, if you have no idea like who we are, you're like, is it October 31st? You don't know. Like, it's people are going to have a myriad of reactions. I always say I can walk down the street from one corner to the next, and down here I'm a faggot, I'm a freak, then you move along and it's like, oh, what are you supposed to be? Or, is it Halloween? Or, and then or I can be like, oh, you look great. Oh, I love your costume. Thanks. And then it's like, oh, your makeup. And then it can be like, hey, Sister Roma, oh my God, I love you. Or, hey, sister, you guys are great. Or blah, blah, blah. So the whole block long of reactions, I haven't changed. Like, it's been me the whole time. What's changed is people's reactions to me. So the thing that I've learned probably the most in 36 years is that people's reactions to me say more about them than they do about me. So the double-edged sword thing is like, you don't know what reaction you're going to get from people, because when they see us, it can go a lot of ways, especially with dogs. But I think that once people take the time to get to know us and learn about who we are and what we do, then they're like, oh, okay, you know what? I kind of get it. Like, we want you to to realize that if we can run around looking like this, you're free to express yourself and be authentic and celebrate life and bring joy in whatever way that you feel that you are compelled, like, that's really what it is.
We've already gone over the time that we said. Do you have a few more minutes?
Oh God! How long is this supposed to be?
Yeah, we said 45 minutes, and we're at 50 now. So I just want to honor your time. Okay, we'll do a few more minutes.
Very busy girl. Very, very busy girl.
I know. Well, like, literally, you are. And until you told me that you did speed, I was like, where does Roma get the energy? And now I'm like, okay, now I know where Roma got the energy for all of it. I want to ask, in our email exchange leading up to this conversation, you wrote, let's fly like the witches we are. So obviously that filled my personal heart. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think of the word witch?
Oh my God, I love it. Are you kidding? Witches are real. Witches bring so much beauty and joy and positivity and good to the world. How boring would the world be without witches? So there are some sisters who are very witchy, like they're super witchy, like they have the medallions and they know the cantations, and they call the spirits of the east and those I love to have those sisters. I'm all like, girl, this is all you. Come on, step up. I need one of your witchy blessings. I need some of your witchy magic. But quite often when those sisters are doing that thing, they'll be like, we need Roma, and they'll call me up. So they recognize in me that there is definitely some like witchy energy going on, and I get off on it. And I agree. Like, I honestly, I think I can't even explain like how magical my life has been, the opportunities, the people I've met, the things that I've seen, the places I've gone, to be invited to do a podcast like this. Like, who am I? Like, this is just, it's so beautiful and magical. And there's just this beautiful witchy energy that just flies around, and it's beautiful.
It is. Yeah. I feel like there's definitely like a connection between the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence and those people who consider themselves witches. I mean, we talk about witchcraft as like that point where our spirituality, our politics, and our creativity meet. And I think that that's true for the sisters as well. Politics, spirituality, totally. And creativity. It's sort of, it's all in there.
And it's, to me, it's also just sort of this inner peace and knowing, like, if you know your intentions, if you know your own intentions, and you can dial into like all of the energy out there, that's truly magic. It really is.
How can our listeners promulgate universal joy and expiate stigmatic guilt?
Well, you have to join the sisters. I mean, that's what we do. Just honestly, it's all about being grateful and looking around and finding joy in the little things. Every day is not going to be, halftime at the Super Bowl. Like, every day is not going to be a birthday party. There's not going to be confetti every time you walk into a room. But sometimes when you're in a hurry and you catch every green light, like, that is a reason to be happy. Like, that is your witchy energy. That is your spirit guides looking out for you. There are miracles around us every day. And just trying to feel that joy and to let other people know that you're happy, to see them, and to let people know that you're happy. If something good happens to you, share that with people. If something unfortunate or sad happens to a friend, call them up, let them know you're there. Like, honestly, just show up and be supportive, and keep your sense of humor. That's really the only way to do it. You have to, because if we don't laugh, we're going to cry. And there are a lot of things to laugh about. If you look hard enough, you can laugh at just about everything.
And when you become a member of a community, then it's like a shield against that jadedness that comes. I mean, you and I both have spent our entire lives in activism and trying to make the world a better place, or a more loving place, I guess is maybe a better phrase, a more loving place. But we still have to sort of watch that pendulum swing back and forth. But when you surround yourself with love, it's like it's a shield from when the pendulum swings the wrong way, right?
Yep. There you go. That's it.
And that's like how volunteerism pays us.
I love it.
Yeah. I'll open to the coven for questions. If you have a question, loves, if you could raise your hand with the little, I've done it, I'll lower it and raise it again so you can see. Raise your hand. If you have a compliment for the world's most inspiring nun, we'll take that too. If not, I will return to you. Again, I want to thank you for the Stop the Violence campaign. I want to thank you for your hand in the Safer Sex movement. I heard in an interview that nurses in San Francisco at the time were using that pamphlet because American healthcare systems weren't producing any of their own literature on the subject.
Yep.
So, like, I think you said in one interview, like, these four queers, talking about the original sisters on the Easter. Oh, we didn't talk about it. We'll talk about Easter. But how these four queer nuns changed the world. And I think you have also done that. Do you feel that? Do you feel like Sister Roma, have changed the world?
I feel like I've made an impact in my community, and that a lot of people that I have had consider friends or people that I've met or conversations I've had have had an impact for sure. Yeah. And people will tell me that. I mean, we all do. I think most of us have no idea the effect that we're having on others. Because, we sort of think, well, I'm just living and doing my life. Like, there's nothing special here. But everybody does. Every person who knows somebody else who goes out and touches someone, who talks to a stranger, like, you're impacting someone's life. We're all doing it. It's a collective. It really is.
We are. We do have one question. Will you take it?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Great. Hi,
Hi,
Hope.
Roma. Hi. My name's Hope. I'm in Colorado, so we're kind of a cool state at times, but we're also a really freaking red state at times. And the LGBTQ community has, definitely had a lot of ups and downs, especially in the Springs that I live. I live in the Springs, and I've got several gay, lesbian, queer friends up in Denver. Denver is, the safe zone. My son, 18 years old, just came out this year.
Oh.
So yeah. And we're not really talking about it with the entire family yet. And that's something he wants to take the time to address on his own. It's his story to tell. But
Yeah.
a comment that you made, Rama, was that the youth today needs to understand what was fought for them, so they have these rights that they didn't have. Even 10 years ago, God, you couldn't go and married. I'm 50 years old, so back in the 80s, several of my friends were starting to come out, and what we had to fight for them to even feel safe in this community was insane.
Yep.
So I am still trying to get an 18-year-old son to understand truly what you have been given and what you need to continue to fight for, so that those that fought ahead of you didn't fight in vain, and that you understand, just as you mentioned the comment about women's rights, again, another hot topic for me, but we're not going to go there right now, is how quickly those rights can just be bashed.
Right.
You have the wrong fucking person in the White House that can stack all of what was supposed to keep us safe, and it can just be wiped away.
Right.
Yeah,
it can feel kind of scary. It can feel like sometimes I think that most of us are like going, what is happening? Like, something, we'll see something in the news, we're like, is this real? Like, what in the hell? But first of all, let me say, congratulations on having a gay son. And thank you for being, somebody that he felt safe enough to come to and to tell you that, and that you're respecting his boundaries, and it sounds like supporting him and loving him. And that is really what's going to save his life. And that's a gift. And that is a beautiful thing to see. And, the rest of the family, some will come right along and some won't. And you'll all figure that out together. But I don't want your son to feel like, to be afraid or to live in trepidation or feel like, am I going to be okay? I want everybody to feel like they're going to be okay. So I think, but that's the thing, one of the battles that we're fighting now is they're trying to squelch all the Black history and LGBTQ history, and even saying the word gay in education, right? And that's why it's so important. So if you are inclined, like, there's some great, I don't know what the bookstores are like in Colorado, but in San Francisco, there's this book called Fabulosa Books. It's on the Castro, and I'm doing a fundraiser with them. They're sending banned books to schools like in red states. So we're raising money for that, which I think is fabulous. But if
you're going to lead people to where we can donate, because I want to donate to that. That's badass.
Yeah, you could totally donate to that, but you could also get some books for your kid, right? Like, reading is so important, and there's so many great books and stories for your son to read and to see other people like him and to learn all kinds of beautiful things. I mean, how exciting to be 18 and to have your whole life ahead of you. I hope that his life is just gorgeous.
Me too. And he's a gorgeous soul. So thank you. I just had to say what you said about that. Just really, I've been waiting for my chance to speak up. So thank you for, saying what you did, because that was really important to me as a parent and of a child that, a young man that is just spreading his roots and learning about himself more. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you, Hope.
And
Thank you so much.
Hope, of course, we will get a copy of Party of None as soon as Roma writes and publishes it, and we'll get a copy of that for your son. That'll be my gift to him as soon as it comes out.
Oh, Amy, so I would love that. But if you can tell me how to donate to that bookstore in San Fran is like my favorite place in the world. So I'm kind of jealous that there.
You said Roma. You
Fabulosa
said it was Fabulosa.
Fabulosa books.com, and that you can go to the website and you can see all the fabulous books, and you can learn about the fundraiser and all that stuff. The front page has books, not bands. That's the link.
And
awesome. Thank you.
For those of you who are listening, we'll put that link in the show notes as well. And what about, Roma, people who want to support and donate to the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence? How can they do that?
Oh, yes. Please visit thesisters.org. Thesisters.org. That is our website. We have all of the events that are happening. We have a Meet the Sisters section where you can learn more of the sisters and read the hilarious names. My name is like the most boring. Sorry. It's just my full name is Sister There's No Place Like Rome. Listen, I was in a hurry. Like they elevated me so quickly. It was a different time in 1985. I was a novice for like a week. And so I have a love for the Wizard of Oz. So that's kind of like where my name comes from. But you can read a little bit about the sistery, a lot of the more elaborate about some of the things that I've talked about. It's a good website. And you can also apply for grants there and donate.
Yes. And volunteer. Even if you're not an official sister, they still accept volunteer help, correct?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes, especially. I mean, you don't have to be in the San Francisco area. I believe the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are in 12 countries, 4 continents, something like that.
Yeah, we're all over the United States, that's for sure. And we're in a lot of Europe. We're in Sydney. It's insane. We're like Starbucks. Coming to a corner near you.
Do you have any closing benediction for our listeners, a blessing that you can lay upon us from the great and wonderful, benevolent Sister Roma?
I will quote Drake for moment for life.
Bless
Nicki
you.
Minaj. And I will say that everybody dies, but not everybody lives. So get out there and live.
I honestly, I cannot thank you enough, of course, for sitting down with me today, but also for just being this beam of light. I think my first exposure to the sisters was maybe Sister Indica, something to do with James St. James's YouTube channel or something like that. And it was the lighting of a candle in my heart, just like Sister Unity said, who are these people? What are they doing? And how can I learn more? And, that was 10, 12, maybe more than that years ago. And to sit here with you is there are no words. Your benevolence simply emanates from you. And they say never meet your heroes, and yet here we are. Here I am, more in love with you than I thought I could ever possibly be, having read about you and your work. I just want to say, keep up the great work. You've been a sister for 36 years. You're not slowing down. You've raised millions of dollars. You've saved countless lives. You've improved millions of lives, and including my own. I wrote in the script for the episode that comes before this, one of the greatest things about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence is knowing that they exist. All the volunteer work is wonderful. Everything that you do is wonderful, but just knowing that I live in a universe with queer drag nuns who are not mocking nuns, but who are nuns, it makes me feel like it's going to be okay.
Oh,
that
I
it's
love
all
that.
going to be okay.
It is. It is. Yeah.
And it is. Thank you again so much, Roma. And I'm sure our listeners will be heading to your website in droves. And in the meantime, blessed fucking be.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for listening too.
You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, find out how at missingwitches.com.